Asif, can you hear me okay?
Hey, Fawn, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much again for your help.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Should I turn my camera off?
Sorry?
I'll turn my. Oh, it's not on anyway.
All right.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. A bit quiet for COVID, and anybody else have the same. But otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm good, healthy, and happy.
That's all matters. That's
That's
all
the most
matters.
important thing. And I'm sure you are very much as well. A very happy young man when we work together.
I am okay. I am okay. I could be better, but I am okay.
Yeah, good. So, would you mind if I start with and share the screen with you so that you can see
Sure.
what we're gonna be talking about?
Sure.
Yeah. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can
Yeah.
say it now.
Thank you. So, my PhD thesis is about the performance management in tech, in particular high tech engineering company, in which you have extensive experience with. Um, During the data collection, case study, and gathering a lot of perspective from different practitioner and manager and director, I come up with the nine of conceptual model, which you can see here, like R&D and project delivery and talent management and market understanding. So all of these are a crucial, you know, ecosystem, if you like, for tech company that you cannot live without if you want to build a tech company. And first of all, I like to discuss about the talent management. The talent management is crucially important for any tech company because we build innovation and technology. So may I ask that if you want to make a three most important of the career motivation factor, do you think what employee need or motivate them the most on their career? If you could name three of them for me, please.
Okay. There's one thing that works for everyone. That is good salary. Yeah.
Yes, yes, the financial is certainly a must have, right?
Yeah. Second thing is the things I have faced before was one is the ones who are good, they need to know that we actually value that they're good and maybe
Yeah,
sometimes treat them slightly better so that they feel like what they're putting in, they're actually getting something in return.
yeah. So it's sort of what we call they they feel that their contribution got appreciated from their supervisor and manager, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
exactly. And
what else you might think that the tech talent would have motivated by them when they come to work in the tech engineering career?
I mean, for my team, what I have tried to do, I don't know whether I was successful or not, using this is like ambition. I just try to show that if they do good, that is where they can reach. That is what they can do.
Yeah.
That's what I try to do, but I don't know whether how successful I am with that.
Yeah, you mean to motivate them to reach their potential, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so meaning that what motivates the talent potentially for them to grow and improve themselves and learning?
yes. Their personal growth is
Yeah,
good for themselves and the company. That's what I try to tell them.
that is spot on. The personal growth, and I like this fact that you mentioned the personal growth. It isn't just for the company. It isn't just for the company or for the talent. It actually from both share benefit, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that is very spot on, Asif, because you see here nearly 50 of the talent in tech, who of which are people who work in engineering field, like robot programmer, software engineer, and also for the student who are about to get graduation in engineering, and they're ambitious to get career in tech and engineering. And these are the top 10 of the career motivation that drive them to contribute to the company. And you spot on, you mentioned the professional development opportunity is like personal growth and how they can grow, right? And do you see yourself from your tech company as you are founder yourself for a few tech company? Do you see directly that the your team and talent really appreciate on the way in which they can grow with the company and learning and knowledge and so on?
What has happened is, I mean, like, that is the difficult part, say, especially for a company like mine where we're a startup, we struggle with finances and we are not like a big company, yeah?
Yes,
So,
yes,
so when you talk about the professional growth, it's a bit in the future. They don't see that straight away,
yeah.
but they can feel it. And once they achieve it, they know that it has made the difference and they start to value it. But this is something, it's a long-term thing, right? So they don't always get that straight away, but they can work on that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think I have to share with the view of the founder that I interviewed yesterday. She ran a startup in Boston, and she have a great career in biotech and now running her own. And she ran a successful startup, have a funding. And she mentioned the same thing that she really aware that the professional development and personal growth is very important. But as a startup, it doesn't appear that the budget is available to pay for that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
The challenge is like this. I'm telling them that if they are growing in their professional career, I mean, like their knowledge and the skills, they can, go somewhere better. Now they have loyalty to stay with me, but I can't really pay the much they should be getting because they have learned so much better.
yeah, yeah.
That is the challenge.
I
Yeah.
think that's something quite common in tech as well, that when they wanted to grow their career, is it right saying that on the job training or on the job doing daily by day, it's part of developing their career as well, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. But what happens? You can just keep doing what you know instead of learning new things, especially in programming.
Yeah,
You can always learn things to do in a better way.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So part of their job, it actually contribute to the professional development opportunity in the future when they have the skill and expertise. For example, in your case, like a tech startup for software development, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And on top of that, assuming like in Silicon Valley or in the East or West Coast in the US, that the financial package in terms of equity and when the startup is successful, it seems to be on the table for all the key employees, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Yeah.
And that is part of what you mentioned earlier of the financial motivation, isn't it? That it has to be in place to motivate people to stay and go along with the company.
I mean, in my case, that is the thing I know because I know the challenges because I can't really pay the high salary right now.
Yeah,
If I have a very loyal team, and the thing that mentioned most is how much others are earning or how much they're losing by being here. So if I could pay them more, they could do more. So but the moment I got a small funding last year and I increased their salary. And as soon as I increased their salary, they had a bit of job security. And, and you could see the difference in output was massive.
yeah.
Yeah,
The motivation of financial and it cheerful everybody to go to the next step,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah, definitely. And if you see in the top left here, as if that in other aspects, like all three that you mentioned is very much related to what on the top here for finance and job challenge and professional career growth and thing. And do you agree that some sort of the workplace relationship with a team and environment and all of this is sort of is something to consider when it comes to manage the talent as well, right?
I mean, the number four, say, at least in my company, is working very well because what happened actually is when started my startup, I took a group of engineers. They were all classmates, so and they were good friends. So they are still good friends, and because they're good friends, they don't leave the company because they know that they're getting everything they need to get in terms of environment here and happy. They know that in other places they won't get it as much because they have like a very relaxed environment here. That's one of the reasons they have stayed with me even though I pay them less than the current market.
That motivate people to enjoy when they work together. For the people, they really feel that it's the same type and enjoy working with, isn't it? That
Yeah.
really. I'm a little bit surprised in this chart here that it appears to be the job autonomy isn't come very high. How do you feel with the job autonomy? I mean, as your own boss, you file a company, assuming that people like yourself potentially will feel that you like to get a job where your manager let you do what you like to, isn't it? Like give
Um,
give you what you wanted to, what they want, and then you drive there without much of the managing.
I mean, job autonomy, I think, comes a bit later. So the thing is, say, for me, it is very important because I'm an experienced engineer.
Yeah,
That is reasons I wanted to have my own company because I will have my own autonomy.
yeah.
Whereas for youngsters, they want better direction. They want to know what to do, how to grow. How,
Yeah, that's very answered because yesterday I'm talking to a very senior specialist in engineering, and he mentioned very similar, and he says surprisingly that job autonomy doesn't come very high, and you answer very well that it comes to the experience, isn't it? That
yeah.
most of the participants on here they are like graduate or few year experience, so their ambition isn't like yourself who have a decade of years experience and ambition to drive your own, then job autonomy for us it could have come very high.
I mean, absolutely, absolutely. And the thing is, for those who wants to have a quicker progression in their career, they want to learn, and the only way they can learn is by following their seniors, right?
Yes, yes, yeah. So that
Yeah.
absolutely you mentioned about relationship that who they work with, isn't it? That motivate them to learn from and enjoy working together. So
Yeah.
overall, as of that, do you feel that this rich picture of talent management sort of um, making logical that what the talent require are quite different? Someone motivate more on financial, someone motivate more on the job challenge, and of course you mentioned relationship between colleague and manager is crucially important in your case at a startup. And do you feel agree of this rich picture reflect the ecosystem in tech when it comes to talent management?
Um, I mean, yes, that is fine, I would say.
Yeah. And if you look at if you want to go with you the KPI, I know that for a small startup to start with, you might don't have a very structure, if you like, in the management, like it kind of it non-hierarchy, and it work as a very close to close, shoulder to shoulder, isn't it? You don't have, I assume you don't have much of the KPI when it comes to startup, but even so you believe that the training and time spent on the talent is the most important thing. And is it like to share your view about that?
Yes, I mean, say, for example, again, for a startup, when I recruit engineers, I don't recruit experienced engineers, yeah? I take many young engineers, and then the idea is how quickly they can learn and
Yeah,
do what I need to do.
yeah,
So that is the most important thing, that I need good engineers, good youngsters who can learn to do what the experienced people can do, and that is what we're trying to do in my company.
that reflect what you mentioned, that the personal growth it actually benefits the company as well as the talent themselves, that you get them for a bit less experience and you train them they're on the job and learning and they benefit and growing and your company get a good talent with the training you provide, right?
Absolutely. And I have some superstars now. Believe me, they're amazing.
You need to find where to keep them, right?
Yeah.
And but again, you also consider like revenue per employee, that it seems to be very important, and satisfaction is part of it surely, and retention it seems to be attached to each other, come as a pair, isn't it? So
Yeah.
all of these quite in a way it's similar in a way, but I got your point. It's very um, strong point that it reflects the startup very well. That a lot of startup you're talking about to get the ambitious young graduate, right, and ensure
Yeah.
they're good and you know how to mentor them. So that very good. And next, I like to just move to the R&D with what you have the highest expertise. I strongly believe on that. We worked together in the past as well. And in R&D, if you see the KPI, that for this KPI statistic, I'm gathering over 60 participants in tech in
Yeah.
particular. So if you have a look at R&D, what people consider when it comes to the key performance indicator, then you consider the same thing, that the quality and reliability of the R&D is super the most important. And then you
Yeah.
slightly different in the way of the risk identification and the factor it comes to be very important on that. Would you mind just give me an insightful information on how you think like this?
I mean, again, my thinking is like this is R&D, and the as a as an entrepreneur, what I want is the end goal.
Yeah.
I want the product out, and if the risk is too high, I might not consider getting into the R&D or continuing the R&D because it's too risky.
Certainly, and I have to say that based on my finding, when I look at the data from each individual, I found that the people who really on the job for R&D themselves will value the risk very high, like yourself. And because of this, the metric or KPI is coming from like over 60 participants in tech. So you will see that the R&D doesn't like consider very high ranking. But I noticed very much people who have 10, 15 years experience R&D, they all value this factor very highly.
I mean, I would say academia wouldn't consider this very high. So the startup that is like coming out of the academia, the universities, they would consider other things more important. Whereas I come from signal vision,
Yeah.
we have so
Yeah, I think that's
I
very
know
true.
risk is risk.
That's very true. Like I mentioned that I know that this risk assessment isn't very high overall, but I spot on everyone who really in tech and focus on R&D in the past experience. They do know that this is a very high factor. So and you really emphasize that is a fact here. And in terms of the R&D, and you're talking about, the cost and quality and time. And at a startup, of course, the cost and budget is limited, right? And the time is crucial. You have limited resources. And of course, you mentioned the quality has to be the most important too. And how do you balance this key factor to contribute to R&D project?
Sorry, say that again, because I didn't follow
Yeah,
you.
you see here that for R&D project, it is like, a very complex, and you have to consider the best quality, right? And also you have limited cost and time because of like a startup. You need to really, consider this very much. And how do you balance these three factors to ensure that your startup does deliver the great R&D project?
the thing is, what I'm doing is not exactly R&D right now, but say if you ask me how would I do it, because I have been involved with R&D projects,
Yes, yes, very much
with
so.
segmentation, to me, cost and time, they're right equivalent. They're very similar things. Because the longer it's going to take, the more expensive it is going to be. And so, and the quality, and as an entrepreneur now I have learned to take things in stages, right? I don't really want the highest quality product straight away. I would rather have the prototype that works. So so the balance would be, how can I reach the prototype at the lowest cost and time? And then I focus on quality, because hopefully by the right time I have prototype, I would have further funding to continue.
Yeah. When it comes to R&D, you mentioning about the risk. When you evaluate your risk associated with R&D project, how it's been done either for the bigger company like Sigma Vision or a few startup that you found? I mean, how do you evaluate that risk? And do you use like SWOT analysis and that kind of tools that allow you to analyze the risk?
Um, I haven't done exact SWOT analysis, because after segmentation, I have not done exact um, R&D, to be honest. But the my project, I mean, okay, I have done the D, but not the R, which is the risky bit.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So
yeah,
yes,
uh,
understand.
yeah. So I haven't done the exact SWOT analysis, but I did look at the market. I looked at the gap in the market,
Yeah.
and the you can say I identify a market gap, and I'm developing something that is going to fill that up. And my risk is, as soon as people get to know my product, how quickly they can come into my sector, my gap. That is one of the biggest risks I always consider. So when I'm developing a new product, so like where I am, how easy it is to copy, or how much first time movements benefit I'm going to get. That is what I would look at.
Yeah. And is that pretty much like a product market fit? And during the development, the crucial risk that associated with any startup is that the end when the product is ready, do you have the product market fit? Is that something that threatening and have been in huge consideration in your mind?
So I say that again,
Yeah,
please.
it's like product market fit and how your product could be hand how you get user and how the user that use your product is your product or services have the product market fit. I mean,
Yeah.
they have the customer basically, and that would be the
Yes.
most
Yes.
important thing, right?
Exactly. Getting the customer base.
Yeah.
And say I have been working on this project for 3 to 4 years now, fully committed for the last 2 years. And even though I don't have my market, but I know where I want to place my product. Now, the biggest challenge in IT sector, or mobile app development, or web app development, is you don't have copyright benefits, right? So
Yeah.
anyone can just do what you are doing
Yeah.
if you like it. So as you don't have the copyright benefit, you need to make sure we need to make sure that as soon as we start to get some momentum, we can continue doing that, and some copycats don't really come into our sector.
Yeah, so it means that the growth you have to continue growing and developing,
Yes,
isn't it? To be sure that once you have some other competitor want to copy you, you already go the next step.
yes, exactly.
That's very wise. And but if you're talking about like Asif Vision that we work, I think that the company have been reasonably successful under Beyond manage both of us. And when it comes to R&D, of course that it's very difficult, right? That if R&D is worth the return of investment, and when we do the the thread length measurement to sell to Continental. That is a big development for us, right? And of course, there are many unforeseen issues in it we work together, and it needs to identify the risk and so on. And then, of course, enterprise would consider how to get the project in time or within budget. And it's all of these quite conventional in the management in your past experience before you found the company, right?
Yes, yes, I would say so. And the biggest, I mean, if you look at what happened in Sigma Vision, the developments, the R&D we're doing, that had a part of definitely research there. We did do the product development right.
Yeah.
But one of the problems we had was like the products we were developing in the labs or in our office.
Yeah.
So sometimes the product didn't really serve in the factory because we were very much in the office.
Right.
Um, so maybe we could address those things before. So like how to have this development, research and development in the industry as well, so that it reflects the development a bit better. That we could do that slightly better.
Yeah.
And if you look at the handheld, the thread device, again, this is a pretty awesome project. The problems we had was we were a little short of engineers and definitely short of salespeople. I think we took the funding a bit later, which is what Bjorn always said. So yeah, so these things, it's like just completion of the product is not sufficient. You also need to have this enough market exposure and enough salespeople running around just to make sure that the product goes to the right places.
Very well. This is conventional, and the challenges, isn't it? That I mean, testing in laboratory is of course in controlled environment, but once you go on the field, you tend to see different problems, isn't it? That is quite a norm for R&D. So that do you agree? Your point is ensure that we actually test with the real. We have to test our product in the field um, um, before or way before we actually launch it as well, so to ensure that it doesn't work just in laboratory, but it works in the field. Either in supervision case could be like a car station that do the track measurement and things like that, isn't it? And with that experience, do you see that it come into play in much clearer view of the product when you have opportunity to test with the real customer?
Yes, is the variable that comes into if we could address them slightly earlier. I'm not blaming or putting blame to anyone. It's just with our funding and everything, probably it was not possible at the time.
Yeah.
But we were shocked at times when we saw the variation in data. The different brightness, different types of rubber and things like that. They're, at times they were so different. We were like, oh man, what to
Yeah,
do?
yeah. And when that happening, what's the product is successful for Sigma Vision, the handheld, the thread reading, the thread reader asset?
I mean, it is it has done pretty well. That's why it was sold to big companies.
Yeah.
Uh, um, it's just, I mean, I think with Trade Reader, it is more of the like marketing issue, not being able to sell to the right places. And again, when you talk to different customers, they have different needs, different demands, and we kept talking to the people who had demands that our device have not really met at the time of development. Maybe we should have had for customers whose need was according to the device.
Yeah. Yeah, that is related to the R&D when it comes to product, isn't it? Yeah, that's very it see the real practical issue of real R&D project. That's very helpful, Asif. So the next one that similarly, that most company in tech they have R&D, some don't, and um, they become like development like your company and company like in particular engineering and tech combination. They normally have development, but they do have project delivery as well. Like Sigma Vision, that we have a project that you know uh, behind the R&D, and R&D is our another job,
Yeah.
and in our project delivery that. Let's see that in project delivery, you value the customer satisfaction. It is very true that the customer has to come first, and the quality and pretty much spot on, and the rest is very much like profit and things all on time and that kind of thing. So it appears to be that you don't do you value the time of the project delivery as you seem to or it doesn't really much change, right, in terms of the rank of three to four five.
I mean, what happened is the companies I have worked for, we never had to deliver on time.
Yeah,
I have never finished a project on time, so to me, it's going to happen no matter what.
yeah, I mean, you know what, as a we are in the same boat. I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more, and we are not the only two. And I talked to the other founder, and they said the same thing. Oh, delivery doesn't matter. It never happened anyway. The on time kind of thing. Yeah, and that is very, and practicality, isn't it? That it never happened. Project over project is always come across is something to delay the project. And I understand now that it is a perception, not ideally what you wanted to get in KPI, but it is
Hmm.
reflect what happening practicality in startup and tech company, isn't it?
And it's also about like it is a very important thing, but compared to the other four, to me that was the least important.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's not important. It is important, and knowing that it's never going to happen, but it is to me least important to the other.
for some other aspect, some said that that some of the innovation, the windows to be on the market is very short. Sometimes talking 6, 9 months and 12 months, and after that period gone, it's gone. And would you consider that kind of the timing would be a significant impact when you launch a product as well?
I mean, tech companies don't really work in that small window, to be honest. In my opinion, I
Yeah.
can be wrong, because most of the time people, unless there's it's a competing market and someone's trying to address a small part of the customer and they're trying to do something. But most of the development, especially R&D, they are done where they know they have a few years window.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no point doing R&D.
Yeah. So it just depends when you're talking the project delivery, it depends on the type of project as well and the scale of the company and also it all consider, right? And if you like you are the boss of the company and if you want to hire a project manager and in the top left here, would you agree on this that the communication is going to be absolutely important and the good decision maker and the ability to organize and delegate and technical expertise, of course, in tech and execution, getting things done above and beyond. And is this practically something that you consider when it comes to project management and to hire a project manager in your company? Or if you have anything to add on or anything you disagree with or to share your idea, I'm very much welcome for that.
I mean, I would say execution is very important. I mean, all of these are very important. There's no doubt about that because these are the traits of a good project manager. And putting them on a bar in is not, I mean, fair in my opinion, because I would want a project manager. If I were recruiting one, I would want to have that person to have good execution.
Yeah, I
That's
would
why
agree.
project manager.
Yes, because they have different type of people, whatever skill they might have. If they cannot get job done, someone will get job done regardless. Someone will solve problem. Problem is always on the line, right?
Yeah.
Considering tech company, and some people could just hit the problem and hit the wall and stop, and but just 5 or 10% of the group will just fight for it until things get done, right? Do you have a similar experience like this?
I mean, um, from looking at the new big companies, if you look at all the recruitments, you'll see that they have different job roles nowadays.
Yeah,
One of them is tech lead, one of them is product manager, one of them is project manager.
yeah,
I would say good decision maker is probably part of the other two, project manager and tech lead.
yeah.
That is my opinion. I can be.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then talking about the project failure, it is something sort of in the top, in the bottom left, in the bottom right here. It is something that you see in the practicality uh, for the project delivery that you have done as well. That when it comes to failure, what you can think you what you can point your finger into, is it like inefficient team communication, and
Phone,
also.
phone. Give me 1 minute. My speaker's playing up. Let me get my headphone. Yeah,
Okay,
I
thank
couldn't work.
you. No worry.
Phone, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. Yeah, it's better now. Sorry, say that again. What you were saying?
So we are at the bottom right here for project failure, that either successful or unsuccessful project that you have delivered. Is this failure reason? It tend to be common in a high tech engineering company. If I'd like to get your view, please.
It is more or less like this. Yes.
Yeah, and
What you have in that.
yeah, and it's exactly the same like me, and also very much exam the same as the other R&D manager. That these tend to be, a common failure when it comes to R&D, and and it seems to happen every time. You know what I mean? We know what it is, and it appears to repeatedly seeing it never get on time. We never do system on time. Um, it miscommunication to some degree, and it tend to be lack of resources. And I mean, in this cycle, do you think what is it? The nature, and why this thing keep coming when it comes to the project failure, and why people doesn't really seriously about them, and try in a way to minimize these problems.
Um, I can talk in terms of small companies. Because in the small companies, you don't really have project managers. You uh, kind of like assign someone to be project manager in your tech team who are not always very good at
Yeah,
management. That is one reason that happens
right.
because as they don't have the proper management skills, they keep making the same mistakes over and over.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good point. That we tend to value the technical skill, um, have to be more than the management skill for what the product that we are developing, isn't it? And that is pretty and would you agree that the complexity of the tech product and project, it is, by nature, very complicated as well?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, because of I talked to other tech founder and he said, oh, it's nearly impossible to talking, no problem, and they start no backup plan because it's always a plan B. Yeah, so that's kind of news in tech. Right. So another part that I like to get your view, that startup very much so that you might be self-funded or family or the angel or VC. And so when it comes to funding and finance, in your view, what do you consider the most important KPI? You consider the growth rate and the working capital and cash flow, and pretty much is the top three is very much money, isn't it? And then the growth rate is talking a bit longer term. If you could give me your view of how this KPI come to your mind.
I mean, to get funding, especially in IT sector, what investors want to see is growth rate.
Right.
So if you don't have growth, you're not going to get funding.
Yes.
So that is the first thing you have to achieve. Now, while you're trying to achieve this, you need to have enough cash flow. You need to have, enough, what they call that?
The working capital and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. This too.
yeah.
So you can't run out of it. So these are the main two things,
Yeah, I understand
in
where
in
I'm
my
coming
opinion.
from now. That in terms of startup, your ambitions is to get to the big funding pot and then grow to the next level of your team. But of course, to get the
Yes,
funding, the growth rate is the most important thing um, for you
yes.
view that.
And if you look at all the big IT companies, none of them are profitable in the first probably 10 years,
Yeah, yeah, very
because
true.
profit is something they're not looking at.
Yeah. So it appears to me that the large scale creation in tech and the startup, they manage it in sort of a different landscape and mindset, isn't it? Whereas the big corporation, you're talking what your quarter profit look like, and whereas the startup, you don't talking about any profit. It never happened. You're talking about how much we grow quarter by quarter, isn't it?
Yes, exactly, exactly. Profit is part of your business plan. You
Yeah.
you need to show that it is going to be this much profitable once you have grown enough, which is what the big IT companies have done. They have grown first and then they have looked at profitability.
Yeah, yeah, that's very,
Um,
very true. Completely agree. And when it comes to getting the funding, like it depends on you see a bit of two part where here, and we're talking about the VC or angel and the retain earning, or i.e. the revenue or self funding, whatever you call them. And so internal and external. So the process is quite conventional. You're talking about you have to develop the high level business plan and create a pitch deck and update, revise, and propose, discuss with the funder, or if it's internal, discuss with the board member and things like that. And then you come to develop the product and then go to be successful, finish the program, or fund exhausted, then you need to get further fundraising. It is something quite conventional happening in tech company like yourself as well.
Actually, we're bootstrapped, so we didn't do the pitch deck first. We started working on the project. Uh, so So bootstrap companies, which is not as many as, but they develop the MVP first, um, and then they look at funding. So in my case, even though it is bootstrap, that means friends and family funded, I still had some development done and then talked about the market.
Yeah,
So,
so basically, in your case, is it a cycle like you bootstrap for a few years and then looking for rest from investor or angel, right? And what that
yes,
timing look
yes.
like? Like, are you bootstrap for a year, two, three, or five, how the period practical that you can bootstrap to run the startup?
I have bootstrapped my company almost till now, so 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
I don't advise that to anyone. It is very difficult.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say people should not bootstrap for more than 2 years if they want to do it. They should go to the angels and investors before that.
Yeah. And what's the trigger for you to go to the external funder or investor? I mean, what point trigger you to talk to the investor angel? And is it the product launch or the stage of development or the growth rate? I mean, what's the point trigger that will drive you to talk to outside investor?
I mean, in my case, when I thought I can scale, so I have the product, I have the thing. Now I need to scale.
Yeah.
I So I need investment to scale.
Right. So basically, quite clearly that you got to get something that work and something that people love to have, and then going to the investor is the growth, that the scale,
Yeah.
and that is the ultimate aim for that, right? And you're still working on that, isn't it?
Yes, yes, I'm trying to get some funding now. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
The thing is,
great.
I have talked to the people. I have talked to people even before. It's just since I have already started my development, people wanted to see something before they can consider.
Yeah.
That is the main difference. Yeah.
And I'm curious that, when you are valued about growth, and it is very important, I have to say, in terms of startup, it's the most important. And what kind of growth rate are you talking about? A lot of startups talking like 5x, 10x, and week on week, years on year. And what that magic number look like for satisfaction in your view as the founder?
That depends, to be honest. That depends. That is also like different stages. You have pre-seed stages. You have seed A, seed B, seed like,
Mm-hmm.
right? Right now we're at a very early seed stage, and our growth rate, we're not expecting to grow that much, but we're expecting to get enough satisfaction from our users so that we can start growing.
Yeah, yeah.
But the growth rate would depend on different stages.
Yes. Yeah. Would you consider as it that you consider grant funding, where it is like it's not entirely a free government grant, but you can consider somehow as well because it gives you the money, say 50%, 70% of the project you're developing, and then the IP is yours, and you give back to the economy if you like. And would you consider this kind of grant funding as well?
I mean, I would love to have some grant funding
Yeah.
if I could get some. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you know Innovate UK and a lot of the, especially in Oxford, everywhere have the city council. Like in my company, I did manage to get quite a few grant funding, and it really benefits
Wow.
directly. I can talk to you after the interview as well, and it really is like some of the grant is
Yeah,
like 70% asset that you're talking about. You pay 30, and you can pay all of your stuff. That's the key thing. It's reduce your cost
exactly.
a lot. I will share that with you. If you haven't done that yet, I highly encourage you to do so.
Yes,
This
please do.
innovation,
Please do.
yeah, I have managed to get some of them, and I think it's absolutely helpful to cut our cost. That in 50% intervention, this project we cut half of the cost, and we don't need to lose any equity. This grant
Yeah,
funding, they pay for innovation that you created. So I certainly will
yeah.
share with you. And all of this is sort of,
Thank you.
yeah, like what the funding looking for. And all of this are coming from the, like a background that when I want some grant funding and what do they need and how I deliver
Yeah,
and things like that. So they like to ensure innovation technology, which your company certainly have. And then as well
yeah,
that they like to see the job creation because it gives back to economy. They want to see your company more profitable and then get to the market share that you can give back to taxpayer in terms of the company tax and
yeah,
like springboard for startup. I see plenty of this and support for coaching and mentoring. I got the grant like to study at Harvard, and I couldn't be happier.
Ooh.
And this kind of thing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely have to share with you as if that seriously. It
Yeah,
really is.
please do. I do need some help in
Yeah, yeah,
that,
no worry at
definitely.
all. I have done some. I'm not expert, but with a lot of grant application, I do manage to learn a lot from them. Yeah, yeah. Surely,
Yeah,
I'll share with you certainly after this. Um,
awesome.
yeah. In that case of manufacturing, the manufacturing is sort of, well, it depends, isn't it? Like how you scale the manufacturing. Like in your company, you did not do manufacturing, but of course the
Yeah,
experience at Sigma Vision, and in manufacturing, you see that you consider the cash to cash cycle time and the quality, of
yeah,
course, the quality very important, and the time to market is going to be a lower factor, and the throughput and things like that. If you could give me an overview of how you consider the cash to cash cycle time, and of course the quality is no doubt that it appears to be what everyone needs it when it comes to manufacturing.
I mean, again, as I don't know much about manufacturing, but from what I've seen in Signal Vision, one of the biggest problem they had was cash to cash cycle time.
Right, right.
They couldn't pay the.
Yeah, so I think that's very true that when it comes to a little bit of start up and get some funding, the resource and budget that limited, it appears to be a pullback in manufacturing, right? So that's the reason you choose it to be the highest brand. I got you. And and then the process of manufacturing, if you see this rich picture, is it like reflect the reality of production, if you like, either big and small, that we have done at Sigma Vision. That you're talking about, you have the spec and you close the supplier and developing and design, analyze and modify and do prototype and manufacture initial product or prototype, and when we get the product, we prepare package and shipping and that kind of thing. Is this conventional that you
Sorry,
see?
my headphone was playing up. Give me one
Okay,
second.
no problem. Take your time.
Can you hear me now?
No, yeah, I hear you.
Okay, awesome. Sorry. How much did you hear?
I hear you quite well.
Okay, cool. So what I was saying is, like, since I don't know much about manufacturing, but the problems I saw happening in simulation, one of the main things was cash to cash cycle time.
Yeah, yeah,
And quality as a high-end product producer is always very important
yeah,
for companies like Signal Vision.
yeah.
Throughput was, and the other three I just kind of like guessed without knowing much, so
It's
can't really
kind of
say much.
unknown that we want to balance all of them, and sometimes
Yeah,
decline, right? Yeah, but all of which, as you experience, without the cash to cash available, it doesn't seem to pull the production or manufacturing any further, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. So, and I like to very much enjoy this risk management because I'm pretty much the R&D kind of person and work directly with you, right? In when it comes to risk management, and I see how you value this thing, and you value the speed, the effectiveness of solution as the highest a higher factor, of course, and then the cost, the risk, and what you will to consider the cost incurred due to the list at the bottom here.
I mean, again, I'm thinking from startup's point of view.
Yeah.
Say, for example, just to give you an example, when Uber went to market, they knew there were legal issues, but their focus was growth and speed. Because if they can get enough market share and enough growth, they can afford the cost that can arise due to the risk.
Yeah, I absolutely see what you mean. So your motivation as a background, as a startup, you move toward growth. so that anything that drive the growth, then that would be the high priority, right? In this case, the speed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a certain lines. Say, for example, we don't sacrifice certain technical aspects. That is, this like you can say backbone of our product. Say, for example, security. We would not risk security, but we would risk many other things.
Yeah. I totally understand. So it's making sense that where this ranking come from, and I think, as I said, that it depends on the type and the stage of the startup as well. That's very true here. And if you want to consider the risk management, and I like to share with you, I think all of these you might know the startup. It's not really startup in a way like Theranos. It's startup. It's 12 years startup, right? It coming from 0 to 9 billion over 12 year, and then go for nothing. And the company like Enron, you see their stock price is the biggest corporation for
Yeah.
resources, and but again, one day go out of their comfort zone and expertise and do so many things, and including the fraud and all of that. It tends to be a
Yeah.
disaster for them. And the wild card, similar like Enron of Europe, again, manipulation of financial statement and all sorts, as well, that
Yeah.
when this one explodes, it just corrupt the company. And
No, I mean that is fraud is like fraud. That is illegal.
yeah,
Um, um, that is how do I say this? That is something you are not trying to find a loophole. It's just you are just doing fraud. Um, whereas what Uber did was they were trying to loophole and or sometimes knowing that is not quite breaking the law, but just taking advantage of the situation, legal situation, or the gray area, you can say.
you mentioned the loophole, and I think it's quite conventional. You're talking about how Theranos can go for 12 years without people knowing that they didn't make it. They take the loophole of by set up the company like a lab test. They don't need to go
Yeah,
FDA, and then it doesn't need a peer review. So, and as you mentioned very well, that when people have a chance or a loophole, they tend to take it. And when it goes so extreme, and that come to play as them, it's a bit of, I think there is a really thin line from the fraud, unethical, and illegal, right?
I mean, yes, there's a thin line between ethical and illegal, probably.
It depends on how you call it, right? And some not will say, I didn't do anything unethical, I didn't do anything fraud. We don't need to take a peer review. We are lab test. The same way, Enron do the mark to market, the way in which they can declare their financial statement when you get the project side. When they get the project side, they can mark up their project in financial statement for 10x or 50x. It's up to them, and that is called mark to market. So it's accounting sort of method that they can use, and all of these reflect what you said clearly. It's the loophole that that people can
I
take.
can can I just say one thing? I remember watching a small interview from the head of Google in Europe,
Yeah.
and they were talking about tax, evasion or
Yes.
why they don't pay tax. And what this person said was like, look, how can I justify paying millions of tax to my shareholders when I don't need to?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
there's both ways that it can go. Sometimes you're obliged to take it because it is not illegal. There's a yeah.
Asset that you see why so many companies move to Ireland. Is it illegal? It's not.
Exactly.
you know, when there's a loophole, you mentioned very well, and people take it. And that's very clear. But again, as we both agree that it's very thin line when you talk about loophole, we're talking about unethical or fraud and thing. And would you agree that if I want to talk of the unexpected risk in this case that break the company, I get this from the direct experience that I see from the startup and the company that I'm work with. We're seeing that
Mhm.
the company doesn't go far because it just keep doing the product that doesn't have market fit, or they keep the R&D forever, and it never drop it when it hit the wall, and it never been happen for the budget and time that they have, and it seems to be too late for them to stop. And at the end, it cost the company and very badly. And unethical investment, I think Sigma Vision would have been one related to that as well, the way that it broke up, I would say. And the hidden manipulation financial report. And I think this is somewhat, as you mentioned, depending on how you face it,
Mm.
actually. And in this kind of the unexpected risk that could break the company, do you see similar example for the startup company that you have been experienced with? Like Sigma Vision, I believe that Andy Price may not get very much when he had to left the company that he found.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much say in this because they're all right, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean,
And then for your company, would you
hmm,
consider the risk management that something that could, for example, if you see, would you review and update your risk analysis? Would you estimate the risk that could happen, including its impact? Would you plan, prioritize, and mitigate the risk that you make? You mentioned a lot for R&D risk, right? And then you evaluate the
mhm.
cost as you value very high, that you have to value the cost associated with the risk, and then monitoring continuously and control with the risk assessment. Would you see this flow chart is practical to implement in a tech firm as well?
I mean, absolutely. When I'm a big company, I would definitely follow that.
Yeah.
It might not be possible for me right now,
Yeah, yeah.
but once I have achieved, you can say, a platform
Yeah.
to maintain my achievement, I have to do this risk analysis,
Yeah.
definitely, so that I don't fall from grace.
Yeah, that's very true, and that is about the size and stage. I think the stage of the company, right? And I have agree with you that it appears to be true that most startup, what they think day and night is how to grow, not very much of to have a time to process. And in that case, maybe the cost of risk management may not be afford for the startup company as well.
Yes, that's the thing. I mean, like I would still say probably consider risk of my own startup.
Yeah.
Um, but I probably would not be able to do it in a very formal way, the
Yeah.
way you are showing. But yeah,
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 absolutely.
absolutely.
Good. And really there, I'm gonna go quick for your time. And the market understanding and engagement. I think you mentioned a few times about your day and night if you produce your product and you like to ensure the customer like it, the customer can reach it, or you can reach the customer. This is about the market understanding and engagement. And
Yes.
considering that. Considering market understanding here, you consider the market share and then the success rate of new product and of course the time to market. Assuming that again the profitability it wasn't in equation again, right? Because of your view is we don't make profit anyway. Is that something that you keep in mind when you do this KPI?
So the thing is, it is like this. The profitability comes from numbers.
Yeah.
If I can have the market share, I'll have profitability.
Yeah, yeah,
So I don't need to consider it separately.
yeah,
The, the thing is, as a startup, I must ensure that the investors can see that the company, if successful, is profitable.
yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, the value of the shares, the value of the company would never grow.
Mhm.
So profitability is part of it, but not like the biggest factor. Yeah.
And as a startup, and how do you understand and engage with the market? You know that we don't have like I never work from I work for a startup and a small company. We don't have the marketing and things like that, right? Everything is done by the founder or the senior manager of the company.
Yes, startups are always, started by the founders because they know the product they want to develop. They know the market. Sometimes as a hunch because the thing is, they have a local view of their surrounding, yeah?
Yeah.
And from that local view, you can see the need. Um, in the successful cases, their local view is actually a global view. Uh, the startup that fail is because the founder's local view doesn't really reflect the global view, and that is where the problem comes. But all the founders, they do talk to the people surrounding them. They do a lot of engagement with people, and that's why they think that it's going to be successful.
When it comes to being successful, and if you're talking about the opposite side, I mean, the common reason of being failure, is it no product market fit and no customer basically, technical unattainable or fund exhausted? So how these three combine when it comes to common reason for failure in market understanding engagement? Would you agree with this that it seems to be a common failure that if you cannot get the market understanding, then an engagement?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I still hear you. As it's a bit.
So sorry, my headphones a bit temperamental. Sorry
No
about
problem
that.
at
It's a
all.
Bluetooth headphone and the Bluetooth keeps dropping connection.
Yeah.
I did not hear you last 10 seconds. Sorry.
I'm talking about this in this area, like a common reason for
Hmm.
failure that when the startup or a tech company fail to market understanding and engagement, I found that these three critical reason for failure for the tech company, like finally they found it no product market fit, and finally they found that it's technically unattainable for the time being, and finally they just run out of fun. It did tend to
What do you
be.
mean by technically unattainable?
It means that they do something that's not possible for the budget and time that they have, and they
Ah,
keep going on, adding on, and at the end, it isn't achievable.
yes. Um, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's just the no product market fit can also depend on you don't have a good sales team.
Yeah,
Doesn't have to be, yeah.
absolutely. And then we nearly get there, and the PR and marketing it's different, right? And PR and marketing, that I would say that again, I think we both know that the PR and marketing it isn't something that we can call a team in the tech. It belongs to the startup founder, if you like. I'm sure that you might be
Hmm.
agree, and you consider the marketing of the customer acquisition cost pretty much like in the startup module, isn't it? That how much you pay to the
Yeah,
customer, that
yeah.
understandable, that why it's so important. And then return on investment and the money you spend to get the customer and things like that. So it all makes sense in a way. And would you have anything to say why come this structure of the ranking?
I mean, customer acquisition cost and marketing ROI there like goes hand in hand, kind of. Um, and it helps when you have brand awareness with everything.
Yeah.
I mean, brand awareness and market share, I wasn't sure which one goes first.
Yeah.
Um, And customer retention and loyalty, that is the ultimate goal, but that is again for established companies where you have established product and you want to keep loyalty. Um, because speed is very important. You expect loyalty, and in your business plan you have a very low churn rate, definitely. You say it's very important, but your focus is always on customer acquisition, because if you can keep giving them new reasons to stay, they'll stay most probably. And if you look at the modern market, customers are not loyal. You give a new discount, new offer, they will just move.
Yeah, absolutely understand. I agree with that. And if I ask you for the challenge of marketing, I mean, of course, that you work hard to get user, and I will say that this picture in the bottom right here, it's going to be different depending on the type of the tech company you are. If you're talking Sigma Vision, and the return on investment and the project period will be much longer, whereas your startup, once you get the user, you get paid and for the subscription module that you might have, right? So it quite different depending on what type and stage of the startup and tech company you are in. And in here you can see that 25% of marketers are not really confident at all that they can quantify the ROI. It's quite shocking. It's just a quarter. And is that apply to your
Yeah.
startup as well? That it or is it quite easy that you can say you pay for like Facebook or Google that much money and how much you get user? Is it simpler for the startup like to go for the customer acquisition cost?
It is not simpler. That is because everyone's doing the same thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Everyone's trying to use Google, everyone's trying to use Facebook, and it's not that easy anymore. Maybe it was in the beginning when some people are not doing the same, everyone's doing the same thing. So the challenge is probably doing the new things,
yeah, yeah,
how to be different.
yeah. And how you value the marketing asset. For example, if you have product, which I believe you already have, and how you can define that if you pay Facebook 80 cents, 80 pence, and you get a power back, uh, is there anything that you can evaluate like that? That then you can say, okay, in Facebook platform is great. I spend 80 pence and I get a power back. It's not as simple, right?
I mean, I was talking to you on marketing expert once, and that is what you were saying, that what I need to do to identify my marketing budget is I need to identify how many customers I want to acquire or reach out to, and of that, what is the conversion rate. So when you're doing online marketing, there's two measurements that you get.
Yeah.
One is the reach, so you know how many people are actually seeing your marketing material,
Yeah, yeah.
and how many are actually getting converted
Yeah.
to is the measurement.
Fully understand. And that is quite not straightforward, right? To get ROI, if you like. That's why just a quarter of the marketer or the founder able to quantify the ROI for their marketing budget.
I would think so. I would think so, because it is very difficult to say right now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
But you all agree that the early stage startup SME, the challenge is limited marketing budget, right? And
absolutely.
yeah, that's very true. And also, I think clearly that it's not the best product. That win is the best known product that win. I think,
Yeah.
and that again reflect to what you're saying, is how to reach out to the customer and get convert to be a revenue, isn't it?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
fantastic. In that case, we're talking already about the all of these, yes. And then the last part, the sales. Um, it's I mean, in terms of the sale, right, that you're talking about, a lot of people are talking about profit, but again, the profit never be the main aim of in startup. I mean, it's very clear now that we've been to this quite a lot here. And then what you look at is the cost per sale, and how much you spend and you get customer, and of course the growth rate and the customer satisfaction. And I think
It looks like I've gone against your
no,
chart.
no, I think not at all. And it depends on stage and the type of startup. I mentioned I have just yesterday I have uh the person that I went with at Harvard together, and she do
Yeah.
very much nearly identical like what you do. That she said that she may never make a profit, and she may even never make a product in biotech. You don't make even a product. You're just waiting for a company like Pfizer or AstraZeneca to acquire you. You know,
Yeah, there are companies like
yeah.
that.
So the profit they never know. It never been in the KPI because it never been the goal for the startup in that case. So there isn't
Yeah.
absolutely no right and wrong here. It just depends on the stage. Um, but again, it's talking about the sales challenge, and again, you don't have a product to sell per se because it's subscription model, right? But when it comes to product like Sigma Vision, and what do you think is challenge in sale in the company? It's a medium-sized
I mean,
company.
to be honest, when I did this, I did thinking of my own startup.
Oh, okay.
The reason cost per sale is very important to me is because to me cost per sale is cost per acquisition.
Yeah.
I'm buying the consumer.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's why it is important to me. Cost per sale is very important.
And the cycle of selling, you know, the sales cycle. If you see here, you develop the sales strategy and plan, and you identify the sales channel, i.e., you go YouTube, you go Google, you go direct. And do you have to develop training for sale and launch a product to the customer, ongoing sale activity, and monitor the sale performance? Would you like follow this sales cycle when it comes to a startup when you get a company going, or is it less complex?
Um, the thing is, I mean, like in our case, sales and marketing are very close to each other, and we probably would not do develop training for sales because it doesn't really go with what you're doing, but it is pretty much in that cycle,
Yeah,
I would say, because yeah, we always have to monitor how we're growing,
yeah,
and that is our performance measurement and things like that. Yeah, because just remember, our sale of product is our app or service to the consumer. So yeah,
sale will be automatically be if your conversion rate execute that
exactly.
that is your sale. So
Yes.
yeah, in that case,
In my opinion, for me, that is my sales. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And in terms of the challenge, I mean, what challenge you when you're thinking about the sale of your product and services? We're talking about the COVID, post-COVID world a lot, and many people have a concern of that. And again, depending on do you have a sales technology and using the tools and things like that, or the disconnection between the development and the sales team, and or it's very difficult to set up goal, and you can put up the figure in your spreadsheet, but to understand it's a realistic, and it's quite different, and most importantly is how you can stand apart from competitor. Do you think this sort of challenge it come to your mind as well when it comes to startup in your company?
I mean, yes, they do. They do, to be honest. But um, right now, they are not like being a big thing on our mind right now because right now we're trying to skew our product to a certain need for a certain group of people,
Yeah,
so that we can reach out to that group better. and the idea is there's a big market gap or they don't have something good that meets their need. And for post-COVID, the thing is, for IT companies, COVID has served up to be a good
Yeah,
opportunity.
yeah, it
The question is how, if we can actually, take that opportunity is our concern.
we so but again, in common that it's quite pretty important that your product has to be stand stand out from your competitor, isn't it? And so you're
Our app is awesome. I will send you a link.
yeah, and this is something that it had to be. And what is when you do your startup, and what come to your mind? What your product stand out from the competitor, and how that come about when you started?
Sorry for I missed you for last 10 seconds. Say
Yeah,
that again,
sorry.
please.
Yeah, what I mean is that in the tech world, it's very important that whatever you do, you have to stand out from the competitor. I'd like to get your view, like when you found a few startup company, and how that idea come about, and how you believe that what you are doing is different and stand out from the crowd. Because a lot of startup, it come to the trap where it isn't innovate, it isn't different, and it's just part of the big part, if you like. And how you overcome this challenge of ensuring that your product is actually um, standing apart from competitor.
Oh, sorry, my headphone is really playing up
All
right
right,
now.
don't worry. Um,
Give me 1 second.
take your time. We just about to finish.
Yeah, the problem is my laptop speaker.
Oh, the Bluetooth keep
Hello.
dropping, right?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, it happened to me as well.
Yeah, this is very annoying. Sorry
Don't
about
worry
that.
at all.
Yes, it's fine. So what are we saying? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the challenge. The challenge of startup is ensuring that the product or services is stand apart from the competitor, and how that idea come about that what you are doing is different, what you are doing is stand out, and how you prove or have that perception.
Absolutely, absolutely. It has to be different. Otherwise, there's no point having um, another product. It's just, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Sorry. So it's just now there are a few companies like the Rocket, I think, Rocket Technologies from Germany. These two brothers. They have been copycatting as well and putting large investments just to get market share. So
Yeah,
that is something also we are seeing nowadays, which is why for IT companies, speed is very important because they can be copied
yeah, of course.
at any time.
Yeah, I totally understand the I think the backlash of the company in IT or programming based is there isn't much of copyright or intellectual property that protect us in the way that we could um, retain. And one key thing, as of talking on that, very interesting that you have a team, right? And your product very innovation and produce and take years to develop. And how can you ensure that your team doesn't steal your software and go to do by themselves? And how you manage that? It's very interesting to hear.
I mean, there's one thing. People know that you need investment to grow.
Yeah.
It's not something you can just copy. So probably if that person has a good backer, yes, they probably could copy.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no doubt about that. It's a challenge,
Yeah.
which is why you need a loyal team and a good team.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think you made a very good point in there that it doesn't mean that they can just get the software and then sell it. You know that the key thing is develop further, right? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Ashley, for your time. I think my phone is cut off as well.
That's fine.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I'm really appreciate and it's very much insightful to hear from such a talented developer yourself, and now you found a few company, and it couldn't be more grateful to get your feedback and perspective in tech company. And thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Fine. It was good to talk.